Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. So today's video is a little bit different. We're going to be diving into some actual music theory, which is something I don't really delve in too much into this channel. It's more just about composing in general, but this is kind of specific to like 18th century part writing, which is very common in like music theory 101 classes, or if you're in AP music theory. So yeah, so I'm a first year music student, composition major at a four-year university, and I'm in a music theory introduction class, and I took music theory back in high school for the AP exam, and I got a 5 in it, and you can check my video out somewhere up here about how I went about doing that. But the hope of this video is that I can hopefully help you review for the exam, if you're in high school or if you're just in a music theory class, just to help you get up to speed or review or just teach you new material. And if you're just interested in music theory in general, this will be very, very informative. So I hope you enjoy. Alright, so the first part of this video is going to be analyzing. This is actually some music theory homework that I had to do. We have like 4 compositions in a semester to write based on the part writing rules and things like that, and I already wrote it all out, and I'm going to be doing Roman numeral analysis and just talking about some of the little extra fun things in here, and some of the vocab I go over, some of the music theory lingo should hopefully spark some connections in your brain so you kind of remember what you've learned over your course of study. Alright, without further ado, let's get into the analysis. So if you don't know what key we're in, let's figure that out. So I know it's F minor because, well, let's look at the key signature, 4 flats. It's F minor, A flat major, and we obviously have Fs in our roots at the end and some accidentals which could lead us into that F minor area. Yeah, so let's look at our 4 chords here. This is our 4-voice analysis. So we have F, A flat, C, E. That can only mean a 1 chord. It helps to know, your keys, obviously, and the diatonic chords that go inside each key. And so we're just going to be looking at so our rhythmic speed, our harmonic rhythm, is looks like 2 chords per measure. So let's skip this and go here. So what do we have here? We have A flat, G flat, or A flat, G, C, E. That can only mean one thing. Okay, I know I was confused. I totally wrote this wrong. This should be shifted over 1, so let me do that really quick. If you caught that, then you get an A+. That makes a lot more sense now. So we have A flat, C, E. It's just another 1 chord, but look at our bass. This is the A flat. That's our 3rd in the chord, so we're in 1st inversion. So 1/6. Moving on to here, we'll skip that. We have A natural, F, C, F. This looks like, so some alarm bells should be ringing. This A natural kind of throws things off. So in this analysis, we're going to be using secondary and applied chords. So if you don't know what secondary dominants or secondary leading tones are, then this might be a little confusing, but if you do, then this would be very good. So what I like to look at is our target chord. So it looks like we have a B minor chord, which is our 4, so minor 4. And the chord before it, we have an F dominant, so F, A, C, E flat. So that can only mean that this is a 5 of 4. So if we write that, and we have to check our inversions. Now, okay, so I'm gonna say it's a 5. It's a type of 7th chord because this E flat is the 7th technically, even though it's just a passing. So we're in the bass note has an A, so that is our 3rd. So the first inversion in a 7th chord is going to be 6/5, like that. And knowing your inversions and your symbols are also very important, which maybe I'll cover a little bit later, but know those. And so yeah, we have a 5, 6, 5, a 4 going to a 4. We'll move on to the bottom here. We have B natural, F, A flat, D. Okay, that's a crazy chord. That means we should probably check what we're arriving to. So we have B flat, F, G, D flat. Looks like another crazy chord. So once you see like these accidentals and things, you should probably think, okay, maybe this is an applied chord, which it probably is. So we have B, D, F, A flat, which is a type of fully diminished seventh chord. So a B diminished 7 would mean, so this is a tricky analysis because our arrival is actually not in this chord, it's actually on this chord. And we can easily figure out that this is a normal 5, just a 5 chord. And it might be a little weird because there's a D flat in here, but it resolves down. This is a suspension, which we'll cover in a second. So this down here is actually, I don't know if you can see this, I hope you can, it's a 7 fully diminished 7 of 5. Beautiful. And then the chord before it is probably another applied chord, so you have B natural, F, G, D flat. So let's look at the chords we have. The bass note is actually a G, so you have G, B natural, D, F. That is just it's a 5 of 5. So if C is our 5, what's a fifth away from C, or fifth from C? That's G. So C, D, E, F, G. And if this is a G, then this must be a 5. In so this is first inversion in the 7th chord, 6, 5 of 5. So that's tricky, but we did it. Okay, we go to our 5 here, good, and then we end on a minor 1. Very, very good. Make sure all your Roman numerals follow. If it's in a minor key, make sure it's lowercase for these, and 5s are usually major because the leading tone is raised, so just know your qualities of your chords. Great, now that we have our Roman numeral analysis done, let's check out some of the embellishing tones we have. So embellishing tones are just fancy little additions to decorate our melody or our 4-part writing. So let's see here. So to be able to tell if it's like an embellishing tone, if it's like a non-chord tone, so if you look at the chord that we have here under our Roman numerals, if the note doesn't fit with that chord, then it's probably an embellishing tone. And there are different types, so there's several in here. So we have F to G. G is not part of our F minor triad, so how I analyze it is circle it, and since it's passing between 2 notes, we just call it P for passing tone. And we have another passing tone right here, similarly, leading us into this chord. And we have, looks like another, actually, so let's pause for a second. I was going to label this a passing tone, but technically this is an F dominant triad and E flat is our 7th, so it is a chord tone, so we won't distinguish it as a passing, so just leave that alone. We have something funky going on over here. So if it goes down and up 1, those are neighbor tones, or it can go up a semitone and back down. So this is designated as a lower neighbor. Some teachers might want you to write lower chromatic neighbor because it is a chromatic pitch. It's not in our key. So if it's like if there's an accidental, it might be a chromatic one. Yeah, so we have a lower neighbor here. Okay, now we have our B diminished, fully diminished 7 chord right here. And we have an upper neighbor, it looks like, because it goes up a semitone and down. So back to the D, which is a neighbor. Okay, so we're almost to the end here. Looks like we have something fancy here. So if you ever see like a tie over to the next bar, it's probably a suspension, which it is. So to figure out if it's a suspension, we need a preparation, which is over here, a suspension, which actually is dissonant on our strong beat and resolves down on our weak beat. So it looks like, let's look at how we can label this. So let's look at our bass note and look at our suspended note. So C up to D flat, C up to D flat, that's a 9th, technically a minor 9th, resolves down to an octave. So a C to C is an octave, 9/8 is a suspension. So how you can label this, just circle, I guess you can circle both here, or you can just circle this and just call it sus, and you can just do this 9-8. You might want to write that in the Roman numerals too, above the 5, 9, 8. There's different ways of doing it, but just make sure you label it. And lastly, we have something interesting going on here. So this might look like a suspension too because it's tied, but when it resolves up, it's called a retardation. So we don't label that in our analysis, we just circle it and call it ret. And we are golden. Those are all of our embellishing tones. And yeah, so this is just a quick look. Oh, wait, hold on. We want to look at our cadence at the end. So cadences are important. So we have a 5-to-1, so it's a type of authentic cadence, as you should all know from your studies. So we have to look if it's a perfect authentic cadence or an imperfect authentic. So let's look at our soprano. Ends on the 5th, which is a C. So for it to be in a perfect authentic cadence, it has to end, the soprano has to end from a 2-to-1 scale degree, so end on the 1, or 7-to-1. This goes to the 5th, so it is not perfect, so it's an imperfect. So IAC is what we label it at the top, and we are good. So sometimes you have to do a second level analysis of like what your tonic zone is, what your predominant and dominant zones are. So how I would label it, it's usually below the Roman numerals, but we're kind of running out of space, so I'm going to write it on the top. So we have ones going all the way to here, so I'm going to write tonic. This is our tonic zone all the way until we reach these 4. So there's a lot of 4s here. I'm going to label it as a predominant zone, including this applied chord, and we're going to move down here. Looks like we have our applied chord, a tonicization is what we call it, of 5. So 5s all the way to here, we'll call that dominant. And then tonic is at the end, so we just label T. Look at this mess we've made, and yeah, very exciting stuff. If there's a lot of things you didn't really understand about what I was saying, it's helpful to review some of the things I mentioned, and yeah, eventually you can get to the point where this is just lightning fast. And yeah, so what we're going to do now is I'm going to restart from scratch, from a completely new slate, and we're going to write a like a 4-bar, 4-part writing from scratch. So I can kind of guide you what I'm thinking in my head, and it should be exciting, so stick around. All right, we're back. Sorry, the board is atrociously dirty. The erasers aren't great, but we have an example from an AP exam. This is the most recent AP exam. This is the one I actually took in high school, but I honestly don't remember what I did, so it's pretty much a blank slate for me, and it hopefully helps you. And this is from the free response questions that are available online for free. So you can just follow along and download it if you want to do this with me. But this is the first question, and it mentioned, so I have to do a Roman numeral analysis. Of course, there's some figured bass, which we haven't really covered in this video, which I will talk about. And we have to fill in the SATB voice things with, of course, 18th century part writing rules and no embellishing tones, which is kind of interesting. So it's just going to be chords. Okay, yeah, let's just analyze. This is all they gave us. This is what I saw in the packet, so I just copied it as it was. Right away, we're in D minor. That's what they gave us. This is obviously a 1 chord. Count your notes. It's D, F, A. And so let's go into the next chord. So we have the bass, which is cool. There's a 7 there. So 7 means root position. So you just make a 7th chord off the bass. So looks like you have a C sharp. If you add here, you have an E, a G, and a B flat. So that just looks like your run-of-the-mill 7 fully diminished chord. So 7, fully diminished 7, because your chord tones would be, you know what, this might be helpful if I actually write down the chord tones. So here we have D, F, A, you double the bass usually. Here you have C sharp, E, G, B flat. And this is really helpful if you're not very quick at knowing what chords you're using. It might be helpful to actually just write it out below it. The next chord is another 1 chord because it's just root position, so D, F, A. Cool. Here, so I like figuring out what all my chord tones are before I actually write it out. It helps me plan ahead. So here we have a sharp and a 4-2. So let's look at our bass. We have a G. 4-2 is the third inversion of 7th chord, so that means the 7th of the chord is in the bass, which means a second up is our bass note, which is A. So A in relation to D is the 5th, so it's a 5 chord, a 5-7 chord. So, and the sharp just means to raise the third of the chord, which is just makes it major. So a major 5 like usual. No need to get confused over that. So we just have an A, C sharp, that's what the sharp means, E and G. So normal 5 chord, 5-4-2. Cool. Here we have a first inversion triad. So this is the third. Let's go down a line, which means our bass is gonna be D. So it's just a normal 1-6, D, F, A. And for these inversions, I'm not writing the inversions down here. If you want, you can like put a dot or a star next to where your bass note is, but yeah, I usually don't. And so here we have a first inversion 7th chord, 6-5. So that means this is our third. So let's go down a space. This is our bass note. Looks like it's gonna be E, G, B flat, D. So in a minor key, the 2 is diminished, but here we have a 7th chord, so it looks like it's a half diminished, because if it was fully diminished, we'd have a D flat, and so it'd be E, G, let me just write it out, this might be confusing. So E, G, right here, B flat, which is in our key, which is a diminished triad, add, just a D would be, make this half diminished, so it's a 2, half diminished 6-5. Kind of confusing, but just bear with me. Here we have an A, which is root position. The sharp just raises the third, so it's just a root position 5 chord. So A, C sharp, sharp, E. Great, now that we know all of our chord tones, we can start filling them in. And this is where the rules of part writing come into play. So here we have a 7, fully diminished 7 chord. So the really important rule of thumb is to keep everything stepwise and keep the chord tones as close as possible and try not to make any leaps if necessary. So what can we keep really close? So it looks like I'm thinking we have a C sharp already, so we can just cross or put a dot next to it once we've used it already. The E, we can either put it in the alto or the soprano. I don't think it matters right now. So I'm just gonna go with, you know what? I'm actually gonna put that in the soprano, and I'll tell you why. Because I was thinking if we put it in the alto, then the soprano would have to be G or B flat, and those are gonna be a lot of leaps. So that means if this is at the soprano, G can easily go to the alto, which is just a step. B flat can stay in the, or could go to the tenor, which is nice. Conjunct voice leading. All right, second chord done. We're gonna move on to this root position D chord again. So keep your common tones if you have any, which we don't, but keep it stepwise. So this is gonna go back to A. We already have D. And in a 1 chord, like a root position 1 or root position chord in general, you usually want to try to double the bass. So we're gonna double the bass by having the D and go back to the soprano. So we just need the F. So yeah, this is just like a neighbor, little neighbor figure up there. All right, this is a new chord. It's a type of 5 chord. It's a 7th chord and 3rd inversion. So that means our bass is already G. We can cross that out. Let's see what we can do. So I'm gonna keep the A in the tenor because that's a common tone. Just keep it the same. It's fine if they're close together like this, as long as they don't cross, because that's a problem. So we have our A, we have a G already, right? So we can have the E. Okay, this is what I'm gonna do. We're gonna put the E in the alto because that's stepwise, and C sharp in the soprano to keep that stepwise too. make sure you mark the accidental or it is wrong. All right, let's move on to the next thing. 1/6, a normal 1 chord. We have F already. So in a 1/6, you can double the third, which is F, or you can double the root. The root, it's up to you. Just don't double the fifth. So I'm gonna keep A in the tenor. I am going to, okay, so we're gonna put D in the soprano because if you look at the chord below it, that's a leading tone. In the key of D, the leading tone is C sharp, so you always want to resolve up with those leading tones. If the leading tone is in the middle voice, so either the tenor or the alto, you can it's called frustrating it, and you don't have to resolve a leading tone up, but I always try to. But in the outer voices, you do. Okay, so I said we can either double the F, which we could do, or we can double the D. I'm gonna go with the F, so it's just gonna go up like that. Awesome, we're almost done. So we have E, G sharp B, E, G, B flat, D, which is 2 half diminished 6/5. Okay, so we have a G already. We can't double anything because it's a 7th chord. So we're gonna have all of our chord tones here. Okay, you know what I'm gonna do? I am going to put the B flat in the tenor because that is nice and stepwise. And we have a D and an E left. And the natural progression would be to keep the D as a common tone there, and then E would be our alto. Last chord is just a 5 chord, A, C sharp, E. So we're gonna, okay, there's different ways we can do this. Again, we can double the bass, or we can have a incomplete chord. So on a 5 chord at the end, or any chord at the end, you can have a triple root, so triple A and then a C sharp, and completely omit the E. That is allowable. Let's see if we even want to do that. Perhaps not in this case. So this is what I'm thinking. We're gonna share the A there. You can share like a stem like that. So that means we have our doubled root. We can have the C sharp come down in our soprano, which is pretty cool because it's stepwise. And then E can stay in our alto. And these are supposed to be half notes. I'm too lazy to fix that because it's gonna be a big mess, but that looks correct so far. And normally you definitely want to check for like voice leading errors like parallel fifths and octaves, but judging from my intuition, I don't know if we have any. I mean, I could check. So you have a fifth here, go to resolves outwards. You have an octave in the outer voices, goes in contrary motion. Fifths go here, that's good. Octaves, contrary, good. F to, I don't think we can have, there's no fifths in here. No, there's an octaves here, goes by contrary. You have fifths in the outer voices, go contrary. Beautiful, no parallel errors, I don't believe. And spacing is perfect, no cross voices. Yeah, I think this is an A+ example. If you caught something that I did wrong, then leave it in the comments, but I think it's okay. But yeah, this is kind of my process for figuring out what to do from scratch, and starting with figured bass too. So if you don't know how to use figured bass, there you go. And if you have any other questions, leave them in the comments down below. I might do a follow-up video with this and doing a more advanced example with like embellishing tones and all sorts of fun things like that. And this was just pretty simple. Normal chords, no applied chords like the last example. So yeah, if you enjoyed this video and got some value out of it, you can go ahead and subscribe down below and just leave a comment and just ask any questions you have. And if you want to know how I got a 5 on the AP Music Theory exam, I have a video somewhere up here about that and the process I kind of went through and what I studied exactly. But anyways, thank you so much for watching, and keep writing.